Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Helps us out a ton. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. If you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at Pickdawgz.com. Of course, I'm always running my $15 MLB best bet, so check it out at Pick Dawgz Premium. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Tuesday, October 4th. First up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Texas Rangers in a doubleheader on Tuesday, the first of two doubleheader games. We're going to see 2:05 Eastern start time game 1, 8:05 Eastern for game 2. Right now, Jameson Taillon listed for the Yankees and for game 1, and then Garrett Cole for game 2. John Gray for the Rangers going for game 2. Now, a lot of the information changes from the night before to the morning of in doubleheader games. That's why we don't give official plays out for doubleheaders. But we look at the New York Yankees, going to be the winners of the American League East. We wonder how much they really actually care about this series and this doubleheader overall. Probably just wanting to avoid injuries going into the playoffs. And guys like Garrett Cole, going to be important in this playoff run. He certainly has not been the ace that the Yankees had hoped he'd be. He's been a solid pitcher. I mean, he's got 248 strikeouts this year. That's number one in baseball, but the home run ball has been really hurting him this season. 32 home runs in 194 innings of work. He's given up at least one in each of his last 5 starts. So when you're going into the playoffs, you're facing teams that are very good and very powerful lineups, mostly when you look at teams like the Blue Jays, the Astros, even a team like the Guardians, who may not be the most powerful, but are very, very sneaky lineup against right-handed pitching. So, Garrett Cole's going to have to be that number one if the Yankees go deep in the postseason. I think they know that. Most teams that win a World Series, they've got a shutdown starter in their rotation. We've seen it from plenty of the last few World Series champions, including the Dodgers, who seem to have 5 number one shutdown starters in that rotation. But I do think the Yankees have a solid shot at making the ALCS at the very least. They're going to get home field advantage in the ALDS, which is big for them because they played so much better at Yankee Stadium than they have on the road this year. So we'll have to see with the Yankees season and where it goes here in the postseason. Big expectations for the Bombers, as they usually get playing in New York. But on the other side, the Rangers, disappointing year. They had some big expectations with bringing in some big signees and Marcus Semien and Corey Seager, but they're going to fail to reach 70 wins this season. I think they'll be back next year, maybe compete for a playoff spot, but it's a very tough American League right now with a lot of contenders, and you throw in a team like the Orioles, who are right on the verge of making a postseason appearance. It's going to be difficult for the Rangers the next few seasons, especially with their pitching rotation the way it is. But for this doubleheader, I'll be looking for the Rangers to compete a little bit more than the Yankees are, because really not much to play for the Yankees overall. Next up, we see another doubleheader between the Detroit Tigers and the Seattle Mariners. Right now, I see Eduardo Rodriguez and Marco Gonzalez, a pair of lefties, going at it in Game 1. And then no official starter for the Tigers in Game 2, Chris Flexen, going for the Mariners. He hasn't had a start on the mound in quite some time. He's been featured out of the bullpen here and there, but this will be his first start in over a month. So, you look at the Seattle Mariners, another team that's going to be making the playoffs. The Tigers, another team that had a lot of expectations, but failed to reach those expectations. And they're going to be under 70 wins themselves. Now, a lot of injuries played a big role in that when it comes to their pitching rotation, as this is a really young and promising pitching staff that the Tigers have, but the lineup, one of the worst offenses in baseball, and there really wasn't too many injuries in the lineup, so that's where you have to worry about the Tigers going forward. Now, they are a little bit older in terms of their offense, but they've got guys, some big prospects, guys like Spencer Torkelson, that are starting to catch up as the second half. Didn't have a best first half. He was sent down to the minor leagues, started to get going in the second half a bit, but I do think the Tigers will be fine in the next few seasons, especially when they have that really strong rotation and when they get guys back from injury, guys like Casey Mize. Matt Manning was out for a little while, but he's pitching pretty well in the second half. So Tigers, I think they'll be back next year and be competitive, a little bit more competitive than they were this year. The Mariners finally ended that playoff drought. I'm excited to watch them in the postseason this year. And overall in this doubleheader, I don't really expect too many exciting games. We know the Tigers do hit lefties better than they hit righties, and they were able to get to Marco Gonzalez for a few runs in the last time they faced him. So I do think the Tigers can compete in Game 1, maybe take them on the run line, or maybe even a sprinkle on the money line as well. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Cleveland Guardians. We're going to see Cal Quantrill and Daniel Lynch as the projected starters. I know the Guardians don't hit lefties nearly as well as they hit righties, but Cal Quantrill at home has been a money-making machine this season. He's not my favorite starting pitcher to back in terms of his pitching style. Doesn't really earn too many strikeouts, and he's had some issues with the long ball at times this season. But in his last 11 starts at home, the Guardians are 10-1. Overall himself, he's got an 8-0 record at Progressive Field. he loves pitching in Cleveland. I don't blame him. The offense certainly is going to back you up. This has been one of the better offenses in the American League, and the Guardians 10 games above 500 at home this season. The Royals, one of the weaker records in baseball away from home. So even though it's a little bit more juicy than what we're used to taking, I got to take the Guardians here on the money line with a little bit on the run line as well. I think they at least win this game. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates, and unfortunately, we're going to have to take a pass on this game, or as we call it at Pick Dawgz, a Ruffalo, as there's just no information for this one right now. No starting pitcher for either team. I know starting pitching isn't everything, but it is important to know who's going to be starting the game on the mound, whether it's a bullpen game for both of these teams or either of these teams, or if it's going to be a starting pitcher. Not enough information to make a judgment call or have an angle really in this one. The Pirates have been competitive against the Cardinals at times this season, especially in the last few meetings. So I don't want to rule out the underdog's chances in this one without knowing who's going to be on the mound. So give me a Ruffalo, a pass in this one. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Miami Marlins. No official starter for the Braves right now. We should see Braxton Garrett going for Miami. And the Miami Marlins have really enjoyed playing the role of spoiler these last few weeks. They did it against the Mets. They certainly did it against the Milwaukee Brewers. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them do it against the Atlanta Braves, who could very well clinch the NL East tonight. I'm recording this video a little bit before the final scores are out for Monday night's game, so they could already clinch. But even if they don't, I think the Marlins, they've showed they took 3 of 4 in Milwaukee. They competed against the Mets. They took a game there, and they covered the run line at each of those games. And they've covered the run line as the underdog in 6 straight games going into Monday's game. We'll see what the final score is in that one. But they've been really good as a run line dog lately. I got to take up here plus the 1.5 runs as the home dog. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Cincinnati Reds with Javier Assad and Luis Cessa on the mound. Now, I understand the Reds are playing much better at home this year than they are on the road, and I see them as favorites in this game, but I just got to take the plus money here with the Chicago Cubs, as I do think they are the better team overall. Even though Javier Assad has some regression concerns with that 3.62 ERA, his strikeout numbers going down a little bit in his last few starts. But Luis Cessa hasn't really been sharp on the mound himself. His last couple of outings going 10 2/3 innings, but only 5 strikeouts with 6 walks allowed and 5 earned runs allowed. So really not good enough for me to want to lay odds with the team, with the Cincinnati Reds here, even at home. So give me the Chicago Cubs on the money line. In our next game, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the Baltimore Orioles with Mitch White and Mike Baumann as the starters. I really don't trust either of these starting pitching options here, and I'm really surprised to see the total set this low at 7 runs. I do think that it will rise as the night continues into the morning, but when you look at Mitch White, 5.21 ERA, and he's given up at least 3 earned runs in each of his last 5 starts, giving up a lot of base hits and not really striking out many batters. And the Orioles have done a really good job against right-handed pitching, and they also did a good job against Mitch White back on September 6th, where they, in 2 1/3 innings pitched, Mitch White gave up 5 earned runs against these Orioles. They've been one of the hotter teams in baseball against righties in the last 30 days, and so have the Toronto Blue Jays, who are facing a righty in Mike Baumann, who's got a 4.34 ERA, but only 19 strikeouts in 29 innings of work. I just can't trust him in this game, even at Camden Yards, which is a little bit more of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, especially with the new wall in left field. But give me the over in this Blue Jays-Orioles game. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the New York Mets. Paolo Espino and Taijuan Walker are your starters. Now, it's been a pretty disappointing week for the New York Mets overall, but I don't really love their chances in this game either when they're facing Paolo Espino, who actually had pretty good success against them in his only start against the Mets this season, where he went 6 1/3, giving up only 1 earned run. And when you look at Taijuan Walker, sure, he's been able to miss some bats lately, but still giving up some earned runs. His last 3 starts, at least 2 earned runs in each of those games, and his last 2 starts combined 11 innings, 7 earned runs, 2 home runs, and 5 walks against the Brewers and Marlins. And we know the Marlins not really the strongest of lineups against righties, so you look at the Washington Nationals, team OPS-wise, the Nats are in the top 15, the top half of the league in team OPS against those right-handed pitchers. I think they can score enough in this game against Taijuan Walker to at least cover this run line, maybe even pull off the upset. So give me the Washington Nationals plus the 1.5 runs here on the road. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Boston Red Sox with Jeffrey Springs and Nathan Eovaldi on the mound. There's no doubting that the Rays are the better team, and I do believe Jeffrey Springs is the better starting pitcher in this one, but I just don't love the fact that Jeffrey Springs has struggled at Fenway Park in this season, giving up an ERA above 7 in his 2 starts at Fenway. His first start was back on July 5th. He went 4 innings, giving up 3 earned runs and 2 homers in that one. Now, the Rays bats did back him up. They won that game 8-4, but the next start for Springs was even worse at Fenway, going 6 innings, 8 base hits, 5 earned runs in a 5-1 loss for the Rays. So, some pitchers just don't pitch well at Fenway, and it is tough for a lefty to pitch there because when you're a lefty, the opposition's mostly going to be putting in right-handed batters to counteract that, and when you're playing at Fenway Park with the Green Monster out in left field, certainly going to benefit right-handed hitters. So, I don't really love Jeffrey Springs' chances in this game, and even though Nathan Eovaldi hasn't been his best at Fenway Park himself, I still think, when you look at his last start against the Orioles, a really tough lineup against righties, he gave the Red Sox enough to get the win in that one. It was a 5-3 victory. He went 4 2/3 innings, 1 earned run in that game, only 3 strikeouts, but I still think Eovaldi is the better option when he's pitching here at Fenway because Jeffrey Springs, just no success there yet. So give me the Boston Red Sox at a pretty good number on the money line. Next up, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Milwaukee Brewers with Zach Gallen and Eric Lauer as your starters. Now, I understand why the Diamondbacks are favored in this game. Zach Gallen's been one of the better pitchers in the National League in the second half of the season. However, I don't love this matchup for the Diamondbacks offense, and because of that, I think the Brewers have the better bullpen, and I trust their lineup just a little bit more, so I'm going to take the plus money here with Eric Lauer on the mound, who's a left-handed pitcher. When you look at the Arizona Diamondbacks against lefties, they have not been good at all. Their isolated power numbers are ranked 29th in the league. Their team OPS numbers are ranked dead last in baseball at 550 team OPS. They have a 5.3% walk percentage, which is the lowest in baseball, and their K percentage, their strikeout percentage, something that really hasn't affected the Diamondbacks much this season, is still pretty high at 23.4%. So Eric Lauer pitching really well at home himself, a 2.78 ERA, 5-2 record for the Brewers. His last start against the Miami Marlins, another lineup that struggles against lefties. He went 5 innings of shutout ball with 9 strikeouts in that one. So give me the plus money here with the Milwaukee Brewers at home. Next up, we see a nationally televised game between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Houston Astros. This one on TBS at 8:10 Eastern. We're going to see Ranger Suarez and Justin Verlander, and the Astros love hitting left-handed pitching, especially at Minute Maid Park. The Astros the second lowest strikeout rate in the last month against lefties, the third best team OPS, top 10 in isolated power as well. So even though Ranger Suarez has been a starter we've had some value on in the second half of the year, and he's been really good away from home, I just can't trust him against this Astros lineup, especially when you got Justin Verlander on the other side, one of the better pitchers in the American League this year with a sub-2 ERA in his age 39 season, a 1.8 ERA. I got to tip my cap to that. 17-4 record, 9-1 at home this year with a 1.73 ERA. He's starting to miss a ton of bats lately, especially his last start, 7 innings against the Diamondbacks, a team that doesn't really strike out much against righties. He had 8 strikeouts, only 1 earned run allowed. Give me the Houston Astros laying the run line in this one. In our next game, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Chicago White Sox with Josh Winder and Lucas Giolito as your starters. I can't trust either starting pitcher in this game, so give me the over. Josh Winder's last few outings giving up a good amount of earned runs, home runs, and base hits. The strikeouts have still been there at times, but giving up plenty of runs in his last few outings and not really pitching too deep into many games either. Lucas Giolito's got a 5 ERA for a reason, and it hasn't been because of his road starts. He's got a 6.43 ERA at guaranteed rate field, just not pitching well at home. His last start was decent at home, but it was against the Detroit Tigers of all teams, one of the weaker lineups in baseball. Now you're facing a Twins lineup that, sure, hasn't been great in the second half of the year, but it's still more competitive than Detroit right now. I think they get to Giolito for a few runs in this one, so give me the over in this Twins-White Sox game. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Michael Lorenzen and Cole Irvin as your projected starters. When you look at Michael Lorenzen's last start, 5 innings, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts against these Oakland A's. That was a 4-1 Angels win and run line cover. And you look at the last start Cole Irvin had against these Angels, where he went 4 innings, 9 base hits allowed, 3 earned, 2 home runs. He did have 6 strikeouts, but that was a 4-2 Angels win and run line cover. Again, I got to take the Angels to win this game and cover the run line. Also, the Angels doing really good numbers against lefties. Their team OPS ranked 4th in the league in the last month. Isolated power also ranked 4th. Their strikeout percentage down to 19.4%, and they had plenty of chances to make that game, that 4-2 game against Cole Irvin, a lot uglier than what it was. Shohei Ohtani had 8 2/3 innings, or 7 2/3 innings of a no-hitter, I believe, in that one. The Angels didn't really do much of anything offensively, and against Michael Lorenzen, who's also had success against Oakland, I don't think it's going to be very pretty for him in this game. Even though Lorenzen hasn't been great on the road, I think he's good enough here. So give me the Los Angeles Angels on the run line. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres hosting the San Francisco Giants. Carlos Rodon going for San Francisco. No official starter for the Padres right now. When you look at Carlos Rodon, a left-handed pitcher, Padres they're top 15 in team OPS and top 5 in isolated power against left-handers in the last 30 days. Their strikeout percentage also amongst the league's lowest at 18.8%. That's the 5th lowest in baseball in that stretch. Carlos Rodon, last start against these Padres back on August 29th. He went 4 innings, 4 hits, 5 earned runs, and a homer in a 6-5 Padres win. That's good enough for me to take the Padres here on the money line at Petco Park. And in our final game of the night, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers with Ryan Feltner and Julio Urias on the mound. Ryan Feltner really struggling in his last few games, giving up 5 earned runs in his most recent start in Oracle Park, which is one of the more pitcher-friendly ballparks in the league. And the Rockies lost that one 6-4 in the end. Even though their offense put up a little fight in that game, I don't think they're going to be able to do too much against Julio Urias here, who's pitching really well this season. He's been one of the more underrated pitchers in baseball, in my opinion. This guy that always flies under the radar. He's got a 2.12 ERA. Pitches really well at Dodger Stadium, and when you look at the Rockies away from home against left-handed pitching in the last month, the numbers just aren't good. Team OPS is ranked 29th in baseball. Isolated power is also in the bottom 5 of the league. Their strikeout percentage is the highest at 35.4%. So I got to take the Los Angeles Dodgers here, even though they're huge favorites and there's really not a ton of value in this game. I got to take the Dodgers on the run line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday, October 4th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.